When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish.
The podcast that stays salty because fuck ice.
Yeah.
That one was from Chase.
I like that.
Thanks, Chase.
That's magical.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, and slugs.
Oh, yeah. Fuck slugs.
I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
And we're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And today we're fucking ice.
No, don't fuck ice. Fuck ice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hi. We're here.
Yeah, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about national security.
Yeah.
And in secret.
We're
to the internet.
We have a guest that's going to come on and share his expertise.
Yeah. I think you say his name, Luke Schleusener.
Sure.
That's what I'm going to go with.
For now. Until he tells us.
Until he tells us something different.
Yep.
But that's my linguistic genius at work, Kyle.
Okay.
You know.
I like it.
Yeah. Me too. The genius part.
Yeah.
Hi. Do we have anything to talk about at the top?
No.
We don't have 100 words. Fucking use my hole, you bitches.
Mm-hmm.
No corrections or feedback worth saying.
Suck it, anyone who's written in.
I guess here's the news.
It's fine to just do the news. We can just do the news.
It makes me upset.
I don't know why.
I just feel like it's very abrupt.
It's not, though.
Okay.
Shut your mouth hole, it's time for your ear holes. News.
News the first, Kyle.
Yeah.
Do you know who Don Lemon is?
He didn't get just got arrested?
Yeah.
Okay.
So federal agents arrested journalist Don Lemon on Thursday evening, known homosexual.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't he gay and black?
Gay and black. And this is part of a growing confrontation between the Trump administration and press freedom advocates over journalists reporting on federal law enforcement actions in Minnesota.
Yeah.
So Lemon, who is a veteran journalist with 30 years of experience, was formerly on CNN. He was in LA covering the Grammy Awards when he was taken into custody. And so the thing, I've been trying to figure out exactly what happened and why they needed to arrest him, because it's very confusing to me. So the shit's going down in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. ICE has now killed 2 white people, so now we care.
Right.
And although one of them was a lesbian, so it was a little...
Yeah, how much do we care? Yeah.
But so there was a church called City's Church, and there was a group that planned to protest the church. And Don Lemon knew about it and showed up to cover it.
Okay.
The government is trying to say that means it's his fault.
The protest against the church is his fault?
Yeah. According to the indictment, Lemon is accused of maintaining operational secrecy while live streaming his show before traveling to the church. He acknowledged he could not reveal details about where the group was headed. So basically, they're saying that he was using his First Amendment right as a journalist to disrupt the First Amendment right of the people in the church to not be protested in their church.
That sentence you said is very confusing.
It is very confusing.
Okay.
Yeah. So he did say during the live stream that the whole point was to disrupt the service. And the indictment claims that Lemon commented on congregants fleeing the sanctuary, including describing a young man who appeared frightened and crying, and characterized the experience as traumatic and uncomfortable, which prosecutors say he described as the intended effect. Now, the videos that Don Lemon posted online show that he was reporting on the reactions of congregants, sure, and some of them were upset, sure. But the charging document also says that he, blocked the exits to the church in a way that obstructed the congregants. But on the video, he's heard telling viewers that he was trying to stay out of the way so that he could avoid distressing anyone.
I mean, they're just trying to find anything legal that they can grasp onto to charge someone for reporting on the news.
Exactly.
I mean, it's it's really shitty and horrifying to like not only what's happening, but the people that are trying to cover what's happening, like that. This is the sign of a dictatorship.
Yep. Absolutely. Don't say the emperor has no clothes, Kyle, or he'll take those invisible underwear off and strangle you with them.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's really scary. The thing that's most important here, though, I think, is that Donald J. Trump, the dickbag fuckface asshole in the White House, hates Don Lemon. He has spoken incessantly about how awful Don Lemon is, calling him all of the things that you can expect Donald Trump to say. And it is not lost on people that he is a successful queer black man. And the rhetoric that dickbag fuckface asshole employs seems directly tied to the amount of otherness when it comes to other people in media. And so he's mean to women, he's mean to people of color, he's mean to gay people, and here's a person that is 2 out of the 3 of those things. And now he's been arrested and for criticizing that man's government. And it's interesting.
It's scary.
It's scary. It's fucked.
Yeah.
And I don't think people like it. There are a lot of people in my life who I think don't understand the double and triple standard that exists for people of color and queer people in this country, and are, because they don't see it, because they're privileged enough to not see it, they can then like convince themselves that it doesn't exist. Like, have a single black person in your life, everybody, and talk to them about how fucked things are, because they are.
Yeah.
You just don't know it because you don't actually have any black friends.
Yeah.
Like, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate everybody. I hate everything.
We only have 3 more years to go.
My brain immediately went like, what, of the podcast? Wait, no, we haven't. Is that true? No, maybe he means the world is going to end, because that also seems possible.
I could have meant any one of these things. Any number of these are my intention.
You mean this administration.
Yeah.
I get it now, Kyle.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens when this goes to court. He's out now, and he's like, in more ways than one, and he's talking about it, and we'll see what comes of it, if anything.
I mean, what we already know, it doesn't matter how this what happens from here on out. What already happened shows that Donald Trump will go after his critics just like a dictator will, and try to silence people that speak up against some of the atrocities that are happening in our country. And this is how you get, I mean, I just said it, like, this is how you get a dictator. This is how you get authoritarian government. This is how he changes the Constitution to get reelected. This is how it starts. And people, I think, give excuses every step along the way until we get there. And what excuse do you have now for arresting a journalist? He might have been standing in the doorway. Any journalist that stands in the doorway gets arrested. Is that how we treat? No. This one particular man who's gay and black got arrested.
And has a mouth on him, which that can't be stood for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ugh, Kyle.
Yeah.
We will not be silenced.
Yeah.
Queer black people will not be silenced.
Yes. Yes. Us white people know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
News the second?
Yeah.
So this one's a little amorphous because there's no like name to the movement that I've been able to find, but a coalition of national and state-based groups have organized a formal challenge to Obergefell v. Hodges, the 2015 Supreme Court decision that guarantees same-sex couples the right to marry in this country, the United States. The coalition includes Them Before Us, the Family Research Council, Focus on the Family, the American Family Association, the Colson Center for Biblical Worldview, the Ruth Institute, she sounds like a bitch, Catholic Vote, and the Christian Medical and Dental Association, which that needs to be a thing, alongside a network of state-level family policy groups. But they have
family came up a lot. The word family, that's dog whistle. Family sounds great. And anytime it's about the family, you know they're coming after gay people.
Well, and here's the thing, Kyle. They announced on a video that they posted to X and Truth Social their case that this needs to be overturned, and it is very much focused on the children. And it's hard to watch, actually, just because of how, like, you could just feel the people that already believe this shit believing it even more because of the way that it's presented when the arguments are just patently stupid. But there's a professionally produced video and tries to say that marriage equality is not a civil rights milestone, but a policy failure that privileges adult equality over children's needs. Quote, marriage is actually the most basic institution of human civilization. It's not. One speaker says as the video opens. Another claims that Obergefell was, quote, built as a win for adult equality, but created inequality for our children.
Why? Because children like now have parents that are married to each other. How the fuck does that, like, if anything, this benefits children?
It said that recognize this. It's a woman in the, I don't know who she is, but that says it in the video. But she says that recognizing same-sex couples under marriage law, quote, made our children less than.
What the? I don't. How? What the fuck does that mean? You can't just repeat that. It like somebody please think of the children and have that mean anything. Like you're saying nothing.
They over and over again. Speakers on the video insist that marriage policy should be centered on what they describe as children's natural right to a married biological mother and father, and that redefining marriage, again they argue, has made mothers and fathers optional in parenting law.
Mothers and fathers were already optional because single parents exist.
Yeah. Adoption is a thing.
And you're not going to force people to stay married to each other.
Yeah. I think they would like to.
I think they would too.
They say that love makes a family.
I agree with that part. There we go.
Is a platitude that obscures real harm. And...
what harm? Jesus, I'm getting annoyed just hearing this. Like, what fucking harm?
What fucking harm? Point to something other than your butthurt feelings.
Yeah, prove something. Give me some. I mean, I was expecting some like incorrect, outdated statistics or something.
No, they're not. They didn't even. They've given up on making up facts, Kyle. They just don't even need them at all.
I mean, it's Truth Social. It's just idiots talking to idiots. So, like, what? They don't need to be smart about any of this.
Oh my god.
What?
I'm wondering if a parody site called Falsehood Antisocial would be like, because I think that's what they actually are doing.
Or like Sooth Toshal.
Yeah.
Should we sign up for Truth Social?
Maybe. Sure.
We can start posting there.
So, we're worried about our TikTok, so we can sign up for both, and then we'll cut the Truth Social one to make it look like that's improvement.
That's actually not a bad strategy.
Great. Okay, that's it. That's it on that. That's it on that. It sucks. I hate them. We've been saying they're gunning for marriage equality. Everybody's like, no, it's not. It's court precedent. Calm down. But they overturned Roe v. Wade. Calm down. It's fine. It's not fine. Yeah. It's fucking not fine.
It was in their plan. This was always the plan. This was always written down and published as their plan.
Pull your heads out of your asses, twinks. Get on board. Okay. News the last, Kyle.
Yeah.
It's sort of a personal point of privilege, I suppose, to put this in the news, especially given that I don't usually do celebrity news. But actress Catherine O'Hara has died at age 71. She was, I think, best known in the queer community for playing Moira Rose on Schitt's Creek, which was just such a heartwarming, heartfelt depiction of gay people. And anyway, she won an Emmy for that. And she died at her home in L.A. following a brief illness, according to a statement from her agency. She was Canadian, and she rose to fame as one of the original cast members on the comedy sketch show SCTV. She starred in several Tim Burton-directed films, Beetlejuice, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Frankenweenie. She was the mom in Home Alone, and also did a bunch of mockumentaries that are the Christopher Guest movies, Best in Show, A Mighty Wind. She also was a psychotherapist in the second season of HBO's Last of Us, which is amongst her latest pieces of work. But yeah, The Advocate did a lovely write-up about her. They called her a gay icon, which if The Advocate says it, it's true.
Yeah, it's the go-to source for gay shit.
Yeah, that's right. She's survived by her husband, Bo Welch, and a bunch of loving tributes have poured in, including from Eugene and Dan Levy, who she worked on Schitt's Creek with. Eugene Levy, they've worked together for 50 years now. So
yeah,
anyway.
she'll live on in all our memes.
Yeah, exactly. And I would try to do my Moira Rose accent, but I can't, and nobody should ever try.
No one?
Yeah.
Ever?
Yeah. Well, I did see an interview with her not too long ago where she was saying that the problem with people trying to do Moira Rose is they try to add consistency. that you need to be all over the place intentionally. So, but yeah, some like a couple of things that I thought stood out about her LGBT advocacy. She really was an ally. She did an interview with Gay Times in 2019, and she was asked why Moira resonates so much with gay men, and she responded warmly that LGBTQ plus people are, quote, the best kind of people. And she said that during a live Schitt's Creek show, an audience member once asked, quote, "Are there any other drag queens on the show besides Moira?" Which she was, she loved it. She thought that was fantastic. And she directly in the same interview, she said that other shows need to follow Schitt's Creek's lead on queer representation. She said, quote, "Dan Levy created the world he wanted to live in and that I wanted to live in too. And it's ridiculous we live in a world where people don't know how to respect each other and let each other be." And yeah. She did a 2020 interview with The Advocate, and she offered this advice that was part her, part Moira. She said, "Accept the idea that you're coming from a place of ignorance, but an open ignorance with a willingness to learn and love. The Rose family learned that lesson over 6 seasons, and we're all being tested right now."
I like the idea of open ignorance because it acknowledges your lack of understanding of another person's experience while not shutting it down, shutting it out.
I think that there are lots and lots of people who are really well-intentioned, who are afraid to ask questions or afraid to engage with queer people because they're afraid that they're going to say or do the wrong thing. And my advice to them is always, intent matters. And if you're genuinely asking questions, you're not going to fool me. I will know. Yeah. And if you're being an asshole, I will also know. So if you're not an asshole, go for it. Yeah. Say the wrong thing. Ask the wrong question. Let's have a chat.
Yeah, I think you're going to fuck it up. It's like a little bit almost like you don't have to worry about it because you're going to. Right. And that's acceptable as long as you're coming from a place of genuine caring and understanding.
Absolutely. Anyway. Sayonara, Catherine. Nanny Greenwood, I love you. Okay. That's the news. Speaking of people we love, I want to thank the following new Patreon members. Thank you to Jared Palmer or Palmier. I want to thank Michaela. Michaela. Is it Michaela?
Probably.
Oh, I don't know.
Probably Michaela. And thank you to Charles Hand. Keep that to yourself. If you want ad-free episodes a day
Don't tell me no lies.
If you want ad-free episodes a day early, if you want to support the show, if you want to come to our Patreon happy hour, which is on February 4th, which is, well, if you're hearing this on February 4th, you're already a Patreon member. Yeah. But it's at 6 p.m. Pacific. Look for the details in Patreon. But if you want all those benefits, plus if you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/Gayish podcast.
Hey, Kyle.
Hey, Mike.
What do you see?
A mouth. Your mouth. Open mouth. Oh, use Mike's hole.
Yeah, because
it's empty.
It is empty. it needs words in it.
You should mime stuff to me on podcasting more often.
It's great for an audio medium.
Yeah.
Do it. Okay, do you want to talk about national security?
Yeah, let's talk about national security.
We're going to have Luke Schleusener on, who has done a bunch of really awesome advocacy work as a queer out man in the federal government who now helps with folks who are becoming the victims of the witch hunt, the second Lavender Scare, as he calls it. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Do you know anything about national security, Kyle?
I mean, not really. Like, I know that there's like the military. I want to know more about like what his experience is and understand a little bit more about what the challenges are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think like when you talk national security these days, it's really difficult not to think about that without thinking about ICE, whose intention is purportedly to help support national security. Their execution of that and execution of individuals is horrifying, and it's not something we plan on discussing with him because he has other points that he needs to make, and he needs to present his image, not his personal views, his image of the organization.
Yep.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about ICE on our Patreon segment.
Yeah, which is not going to be just 10 minutes of screaming, I promise.
I don't know. I don't promise. I don't promise. I think what's important to say up front is, like, I think ICE needs to be abolished. Their actions are horrifying. They are pushing us towards like this authoritarianism that we talked about in the news, and it's disgusting. And if you support them, I hope you don't listen because I don't like you.
Great. That's definitive.
Yeah.
Glad we talked about that before you threw it out there. I totally agree. I totally agree. Great. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be with Luke Schleusener to talk about ONS and a bunch of other things, national security. Yeah. Should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So are we back?
We're back.
We're back. We're here with Luke Schleusener. Nailed it. Great. Got a thumbs up. Luke is the co-founder and CEO of Out in National Security, which is the largest LGBTQIA plus national security professional association in the United States. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be with you guys today.
Yeah. Okay. So you said you listen, so you know what you're getting yourself into.
I know what I've signed up for.
Okay.
And given the weather in DC right now, who doesn't want to go on a little Sunday fun day adventure with friends?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Is it like, it's like super ass cold, right?
It is super ass cold, and our blessed southern city has decided to do as little snow removal as possible. So everyone is starting to get Muppet cabin fever.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good time for a podcast recording. That feels like, cozy and warm up next to us and our ears.
Exactly.
Get yourself a hot toddy and just listen. Let's talk about the totally chilled subject of national security.
Oh, exactly. Never a dull moment.
To start off, I mean, Mike gave a brief overview, but can you tell us a little bit more about Out in National Security?
Sure thing. So ONS is 6 years old. It does what it says on the tin, recruit, retain, promote LGBTQIA folks across what people in the field would call the national security enterprise. And that's all of the federal government agencies, but also all the companies that work with the federal government. Bring more queer people into those, get them promoted, change law, custom, and policy, which we've done a fair amount of. Happy to talk about that today. And then we do public education, public engagement, and we do partnership work. So like I work with veteran service organizations, I work with faith groups, I work with trade unions, do a lot of different and interesting things, especially right now as the second Lavender Scare gets worse and worse and you need all of your friends. But we also have all the same enemies. I had the idea for Out in National Security when I was at the Pentagon. I was a presidential appointee for the Obama administration from 2012 to 2017. In that period of time, Don't Ask, Don't Tell had been repealed. Don't Ask, Don't Tell banning queer people from serving in the military. So for many people in the Pentagon, I was the first gay person they knew, which was a perpetual experience of macroaggression Monday. The Pentagon is 23,000 people, which makes it, America's largest low-lying office building, but it's also America's largest small town. And so if you're an outsider, people are curious as to why you're there. But if you become an insider, you count. I was probably the first person to take a boyfriend to the Secretary of Defense's Christmas party. Wow. And I had a lot of fun explaining to people that this was my boyfriend, not my partner. And at a certain point, I had to tell a certain 3-star that it wasn't my partner. We didn't own a stationery store together, but if he'd like, he could give us money to start one. And so, it was that experience, and working with a colleague of mine who was and still is the highest ranking trans person to ever serve in the federal government, that made it clear that there were plenty of queer people, but they were scattered all over the country like a podcast listenership. And life for us could get incrementally easier if instead of us each fighting our own individual battles in whatever office we were in that was too air conditioned and had too many PowerPoint slides, we all talked to each other and we could all help each other.
So it's Department of Homeland Security, the NSA, or is the NSA under DHS now?
So the broad umbrella of federal agencies that we cover, it is the intelligence community. So your friends at the CIA, and then a bunch of other 3-letter agencies that no one's heard of and no one needs to think about. The NSA that you just talked about is part of DOD.
DOD. Okay.
We deal with parts of DOJ. So like the FBI, for example, and the Department of Justice has a national security division where lawyers deal with national security stuff. Same with Treasury. Obviously, we included the Department of State and USAID, RIP, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. One thing I'd want folks listening to know is that by itself, the United States Department of Defense is the largest LGBT employer in the U.S., and the VA, the Veterans Affairs, is the largest queer care provider. It directly provides healthcare to 2 million LGBTQIA plus veterans. And unlike the Department of Defense, did not have Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and so has a much more comprehensive sense of how you take care of queer people than most large entities do. So that is sort of our federal universe, if that makes sense.
I don't want to rattle too much on the VA, but
Sure.
there's a bunch of stuff going on in like the gender affirming care world right now with them.
Yes.
Right? What's the latest there?
Lots of different bad things are happening.
Yeah.
So the Obama and Biden administration, and to some degree the first Trump administration, because they just didn't notice, put in a series of directives for gender affirming care. Of how you treat trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming folks when they show up to get care that they are entitled to because they served in the U.S. military. The current administration ripped that all out. So people are no longer required to treat people well when they show up for care. In addition, you may have seen the department is cracking down on access to reproductive care. So theoretically, if you are a veteran, you're supposed to get a full suite of reproductive rights, including abortion rights at the VA. That is now out of the question. So they are trying to shove back into the closet all the trans people at the VA. There are about 135,000 trans veterans, we think. It is very hard to get precise numbers for that, but that's a lot of people to screw over. And I will also say, the VA is made up of people who care about doing their jobs and care about doing it well. And one of our partner organizations has an unmet care needs fund for all the people who no longer feel safe to go to the VA and get hormone replacement therapy, or talk about their military sexual trauma, or talk about the PTSD they have from serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, because all those people have to go somewhere else. I will also say we've been lucky. We've worked with a lot of state and local governments in the last year to make sure trans folks who otherwise could get care at the VA can get access to gender affirming care somewhere else.
Yeah. I imagine that's a really terrible way to find out your doctor is an asshole, though, to like have the policy change and now suddenly they're mean to you because you are gender nonconforming.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's also just like a bad signal. It is the same thing as, you may have seen the story about the FBI agent who got fired for having a pride flag.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of dumb bullies saying you don't belong, even though, one fact that I like to hold close to my heart and in my head is, as of today, they've kicked more trans people out of the U.S. military who know how to operate a machine gun than there were people convicted of insurrection on January 6th.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Should I get a gun, Kyle?
No.
Do I need a gun?
I absolutely do not think you need to get a gun.
Oh, well.
Oh, God, no. Yeah. Most people who have guns end up shooting themselves or someone they live with and not an intruder.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the statistics are not on your side for getting a gun. They're not on the side of you're going to defend yourself against the government. Fine.
No guns for me. Okay, so looking at your CV, you wrote speeches for the Pentagon. Is that like, when did you decide that you wanted to do that? Is that like, it doesn't seem like it's, the kind of thing that a closeted gay boy wants to like make their life's ambition, but you found yourself there doing that. Like, what was the journey to there?
Oh, it was all dumb luck, good looks, and timing. And I only have two of those on most days. I will also say, I came out in high school. I had very supporting parents. I had a lovely coach who is still like one of my best adult friends. So did not have closet problems, though of course got all of the homophobia of figuring out that you were gay the same time Matthew Shepard got killed. It's a very exciting way to learn that there are plenty of people in this country who not only hate you for who you want to go kiss, but also would celebrate it if you died.
Yeah.
As for the speech writing thing, I knew I wanted to do national security something in college. It was right after 9/11 and, wanted to serve the country. Couldn't do the military thing and just kept pressing random buttons to see what would happen, essentially. I was lucky to intern for Ted Kennedy, who is a wonderful human being, much missed and very gay friendly. Hired the first HIV positive staffers in the Senate who worked on AIDS and did remarkable work. And his legislative director and speechwriter had been there since the 1960s and just took a shine to me. And so gradually I was like, well, I am good with words. As you can tell, I'm talking too much. And from there I was like, well, what if I did this as like a job? Is that a thing? And so what happened was sequentially Ted Kennedy died and I went to grad school, and then a friend of mine was doing speech writing for the Secretary of Defense, Bob Gates. And when she left to go get her graduate degree, she was like, what if we high-fived and you took my job? And I was like, well, I am recently out of graduate school and I would like to figure out how to pay off the student debt. So I applied for the job, which meant, I did a job interview. I wrote a bunch of prep speeches, and they took enough of a shine to me that they kept me. And so I was there for 3 Secretaries of Defense, Panetta, Hagel, and Carter, who are all very different and very interesting people. But I'd say, being the speechwriter to the Secretary of Defense is a little bit like being the maid of honor at a wedding. You can wander the Pentagon and just say the SecDef wants this or needs this, and things will happen. And, lots of people imagine the Pentagon is like something out of Jack Ryan or Jason Bourne. And in fact, it's just a gigantic cubicle farm. It's a little bit like the Mall of America, but instead of Legoland, you have, special operations, low intensity conflict, and you have, are we buying an aircraft carrier? Which is a little bit less fun than Legoland for some, but much more fun than Legoland for others.
I think there's probably the same thing. We're gonna. Do you want to build a real one or a little one? Let's build some shit.
What were some of the most critical things that you had to craft communication around?
Oh gosh, lots. I would say. It was an interesting learning curve because it is a very large building with politics all its own, as well as you rock up on that thing with your own political preferences and agenda. I had to do a lot of messaging. Eventually, I was trusted to do the messaging around all the incremental changes that happened for queer people while I was there. So for your listeners who are young enough to not remember, repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then Windsor and Obergefell, like one of the more exciting things that happened was I talked Secretary Hagel, who was a Republican senator from Nebraska, into hosting Gay Pride and speaking at it. So he became the first Secretary of Defense to speak at a Gay Pride event. And it was the same day that Windsor came down. And I had this very critical moment of explaining to different people what that could mean. And so ended up writing 6 versions of that speech. And it turned out that it was not decided by the time the event happened. So I had to run through with a binder, switch out a bunch of pages, let the event happen. And then the minute after the event was over, the Supreme Court dropped the decision. And so we had to scramble and write sort of remarks for a press conference. I will also say that was a great moment because that was a couple of years into my time at the Pentagon, and a bunch of people for whom I was the gay person they knew. I got phone calls congratulating me as if I was personally about to go get married. And I was not single, but I was like, well, I guess everyone's Miss Manners manual taught you to be polite. So there's that. There's also like lots of other stuff, like heavily involved with a lot of the ways we communicated about the Arab world after the Arab Spring. I spent a substantial amount of time in college and graduate school in the Middle East, so did a lot of that. Did a lot of stuff that people will mostly forget about NATO and the future of a variety of things, all of which taught me important lessons about how senior flag officers and people who are otherwise very scary have different priorities and how to make friends, which looped back around for when it came to the more values aligned stuff like helping LGBTQ service members or explaining policy transformation for LGBTQ folks.
Did you ever have to write speeches or communication around things that you'd personally disagreed with, but still had to like endorse them or support them in some way?
Not really, no. I mean, like not everything came out the way I wanted it to, right? Everyone, if you're talking about every possible thing the Department of Defense does, right? So it massive beast. It's basically a country in its own right. I didn't agree with how things were said, but you're also, when you are the speechwriter, it's a little bit like being a writer in a writer's room on a TV show. You don't get to decide the plot. You're there to fill in the plot holes and make the thing go. So, there were definitely times where it wasn't how I thought that would go, but I was going to carry the ball. I also had a lot of fun because, once or a year or so, the folks over at the White House would call over and ask about fun stories for State of the Union. So I always had a little tack sheet for that, which was a lot of fun to share the human interest stories that you pick up, going across the Department of Defense, meeting service members, meeting spouses, playing with weapons platforms and learning things. But, a lot of it was negotiating what I thought the department should be saying and how it should be saying it. So like I wrote a version of the Secretary's Pride remarks that I wanted Hagel to give in 2013 that ultimately got given years later when people felt the department had calmed down enough. So there's lots of stuff like that. And then there's lots of incredibly boring stuff like, when the Secretary of Defense goes out to Congress and explains, what the defense budget is for. That's one where you basically sit in a nightmare. Everyone's used Microsoft Word. Imagine track changes, but it's track changes from 35 people, and you have to figure out who in those 35 people you're going to have to listen to. So it's much more, not a disagreement, but okay, a lot of people have a lot of very strong feelings about budget numbers, and I just have to figure out who I'm not going to make mad at me this week.
It's a messy, messy way to write. And also, it kind of blows me away. You would write shit and then hear it come out of somebody's mouth way down the line because we had to wait for the right moment. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. But it's also, I guess my endurance hanging out in the department and persuading people that I was right in what we're going to say and how we're going to say it, which is one of the really interesting and important things to think about now, especially when, various people in the current administration seem to just say whatever comes to their mind between, the fingers of their iPhone without any sort of sense or process. I was involved in communications written about, classified military operations, and those went through lawyers, all sorts of other things where you're okay, how do I release this and do I not get in trouble? Or incidentally break the law versus people who are just out there saying things it was not the SecDef's responsibility to go naming ships and stuff, but I had a good friend who was responsible for doing my job for the Secretary of the Navy. And one of the cool things that Secretary of the Navy did was he named one of the ships in the U.S. Navy after Harvey Milk.
Yeah.
Harvey Milk's a U.S. Navy veteran. And so that ship was laid down. And then this administration got up one morning having, not had enough whiskey or gin, depending on what you think our current SecDef does first thing in the morning, and decided to rename the boat.
Yeah.
And just annals of impulsive pettiness and lots of stuff like that. I think about when we set up ONS, one of the incentive points was the first trans ban. I'd worked on the end of the ban on trans people in the military the first time, which was politically delicate and incredibly complicated and required extraordinary patience. And that bridesmaid's energy of just rolling into meetings SecDef wants me here. I am now in this task force because I was the only queer person available. And I got to spend a lot of time explaining to different people, that is a transvestite. That is a drag queen. This is a trans person. This trans person serves at Fort Bragg. And right now it's not okay for them to use the bathroom on base. So can we please work on this? And, because I'd been there long enough and also I'd gone to their kids' baptisms and all sorts of other things. People were well, I guess he's a respectable one. We can trust his advice on this issue.
One of the good ones. Yeah, one of the good ones.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing like trading on that. But yeah, it's the first Trump administration, the trans ban was announced via tweet, and I remember getting 2 different phone calls at the same time on 2 different phone lines. One from a friend who was a journalist at the Pentagon, and another friend on the Joint Chiefs. It's there were 17 tweets in this thread back when Twitter was trending, and between tweet 16 and 17, it could have been anything from, and I've declared war on North Korea, to banning trans people, to and that's why I'm having a Big Mac for lunch. And so I had these 2 different people on mute on 2 different phone lines being fuck, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
And in both cases, each of them being this is going to ruin my day. What the fuck?
Yeah. I wanted to pivot a little bit. You mentioned in things that I've read and in the chat today with us about the second Lavender Scare, and I want to dig into that a little bit. The original Lavender Scare from the 50s was a byproduct of McCarthyism and sort of routing out communism, and a lot of gay people, gay men in particular, were kicked out of the federal government on the idea, as fucked up as it was, sounds sort of like the premise kind of makes sense, that it's about national security, because if the Soviets were to find out that this person was gay and closeted and in a high power position in the federal government, that they could leverage the very real threat of outing them in order to accomplish nefarious goals. So, and again, as fucked up as it is, because there were 0 examples of that actually happening, but at least it sounded plausible. Is there any plausible argument for what's happening now? Are they still trying to tie it to national security? Has that sort of kernel of premise changed at all? What's true now these days?
I would say that the first Lavender Scare is about secrecy and security risk, but also I mean, there's continuity between them, because the first Lavender Scare is the idea that there are pointy-headed intellectuals, primarily in the State Department, who are in charge of the nation's security, but aren't masculine enough. There's a lot of like heavily class-coded language and class anxiety about the homosexuals in the State Department, but the State Department in total as being effete because it's upper class, versus McCarthy, who was working class, and people, well, not Roy Cohn, well, sort of Roy Cohn. This one is much more about the threat that comes from being visibly queer in the national security state, and sort of a whole question of who belongs and who doesn't. So, like the trans ban, this time around, the executive order talks about how, it's incompatible to be trans and to contribute to national security. No, it's not. No, it's not. You put that person on HRT and they can, in fact, press the button that launches the drone, calm down. Or, we have standards for people. Like, you may have seen that the Secretary of Defense, who is very concerned about, lethality, masculinity, manhood, cannot do a complete pull-up. And, Patagonia can. Your median trans enlisted person can. It is the idea that there are queer people and trans people in the military and in other parts of the federal government who are visible, are unapologetic about who they are, and are making a positive impact on the nation's interests. So, they're chasing the trans people out of the military. They're also interested in stopping women from having combat roles in the U.S. military, which is a reform that's about 10 years old that reflects sort of the realities of the war on terror, but also puts a glass ceiling back on women. They purged the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the 2 women and the black guy. The Secretary of Defense has announced a policy on beards, which is all about lethality. But in fact, the beard policy is about chasing out African Americans, because you don't want to share the military with non-white people. The same way you may have seen the news 2 weeks ago about slowing down shipping of HIV positive recruits to basic training. That is, theoretically about lethality and military readiness, but it's really about disproportionately targeting LGBTQ recruits.
Wait, what's the beard thing? I'm sort of confused by that. I thought maybe for a second it just meant that like everybody needed to have a Kathy Griffin next to them or something.
I mean, some people more than others, right? And not everyone can afford Kathy Griffin as a beard. Some people, have to settle for less, like Larry Craig. No, the beard thing. So, the U.S. has grooming standards, and the grooming standards are separated by gender. So, like, women have to have hair one way, men have to have hair another way. Like, one of the really interesting reforms of the last decade was women are now allowed to have ponytails in the military, which they were not allowed to have before. And, there's all sorts of other things. But the U.S. military for a long time had standards that, if you're on active duty, you can have a mustache but not a beard. And the mustache has to be, of a certain length and so forth. Like, it cannot be any bigger than X. And, there were for a long time waivers for this, because if you are disproportionately African-American to a couple other minority groups, if you shave too often, you get inflammation on your face.
Yeah.
And that is, not good for your health or your well-being or your self-image. And so people could get shaving waivers. And then over the last 5 to 7 years, the military started letting some people have beards, originally under a religious waiver for people who were following Thor, which I have a lot of questions about, but decided not to ask. And then it became sort of just more broadly, as it turns out, it doesn't matter if you have a beard, if you still can show up and make height and weight, and, because officer promotions are like getting a review at work. If you are in fact doing the work and you have a beard, it does not disrupt what you'll hear conservatives say when they talk about women in combat arms or queer people is it disrupts good order and discipline and unit cohesion. And like, after 20 years of the war on terror, it's pretty clear that good order and discipline and unit cohesion don't depend on everyone looking the same. It depends on everyone finishing the job. And finishing the job can include people who are good at cybersecurity and have a beard, and it doesn't matter.
I feel like I would be very, very distracted in the best way by a Thor worshiper in my unit, though. Just like I would have a hard time paying attention.
I would recommend to you, there's a, get on Instagram and look for the NATO Viking. There's a NATO public affairs officer who I believe still has that as his handle, and, looks like a lesser Helmsworth, but is still a delight.
you've talked, as we've been discussing, about some of the stereotypes of national security, that it is masculine, that a lot of people are like, dudes need to be here and be dudes. Has it improved or changed over the time that you've been involved in it, or has it stayed largely the same kind of stereotypes and assumptions that people have?
So over the course of my time in it, it has gotten better.
Okay. That's good to hear.
So to give you sort of an example there, when I joined the Pentagon, a colonel who spent about a generation in the military, and then generals who'd spent 30 years in the military, had joined from small town America, in the 60s and 70s. And their sort of idea of what America is, that clock stopped in 1962, 1968, 1972, that sort of thing. By the time I left 5 years later, a colonel had joined the U.S. military after the real world season in San Francisco. So more people knew they knew a queer person. More people had been in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan and had a perfectly fine time with a woman in special forces, with African Americans. And, for good or ill, the U.S. military is the rare thing where equal pay gets equal work, and the rare place where it's probably America's most successful multiracial organization, which is why certain people are interested in taking a tack hammer to it and making it not work and alienating people. I will also say, I had this Last Supper kind of thing before my first day at the Pentagon with a bunch of my friends from Ted Kennedy's office, who are all, so they're domestic policy people. Some of them work on, at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Some of them work elsewhere. Lovely people, care about government. And they were very concerned for me going over because, I went to Wesleyan. I'm, a full range of emotions and character. And I know how to apply, a good smoky eye in a wig. And so, and they were like, on the one hand, scary. On the other hand, we assume the Secretary of Defense will roll around the Pentagon like Darth Vader. So if people fuck with you, it'll be fine. And what I actually found out to be the case is, most people in the armed forces, and then, out of the armed forces, because the Pentagon civilians largely are veterans, with a little exposure, people are pretty reasonable, and we're getting better. Before the current administration, I want to say something like 1 in 5, officers in the special forces are female, which is a staggering jump. That was something that was barred to women a decade ago. And the idea that many women qualify for it and stay in the field is a remarkable transition. And all this stuff was, not being digested, on command, but, it's a gigantic organization that is very slowly evolving, but it's made up of people who volunteer to show up. And right now, something like 1 in 7 Americans can't serve, either because they're overweight or other disqualifying factors. And the military, when you are exposed to people, will just go along, get along. I mean, there's still plenty of friction points and complexities, but, the average officer's attitudes were changing in the last decade and, continue to change. But it's sort of people beyond that first ring who have a negative reaction. Like Pete Hegseth is, I want to say he's an Army Guard major, which is, sounds impressive, is not impressive. I know plenty of people who became majors through, direct commission and spending the better part of a decade in combat who, are completely unfazed by the idea of serving with a trans person or a woman or, a trans Latina in cybercom, for example, right? Like it's, if you guys may have seen the event last month at the Human Rights Campaign, and Stan McChrystal, who's a sort of a famous hardline general who was the commander in Afghanistan for Obama, got fired for getting drunk and talking shit to Rolling Stone. But someone who came out of Special Forces, which is a very, very doctrinaire community, went to this special retirement event for the trans people who were retiring out of the military, not because they want to, but because they're being pushed out. And, spoke at the event, spent the entire time on stage. Stan McChrystal is a retired 3-star. So this is an indication of what his perception of Army values are, which are a big deal, and his perception of personal risk and political risk at a time where, the current administration is struggling in terms of achieving what it wants to reshape the military to what you see in TV, right? Like if you ask the average American to imagine a service member, they will imagine a burly white dude who looks like Chris Pratt from Zero Dark 30. When in fact, the U.S. military, as we get closer to 2030, is going to get closer and closer to parity male-female. But people It's the people who have a pop cultural conception of the military and get mad when the real military is not that, because the real military, includes a lot of Latinos, Asian American, Pacific Islanders, lots of other people who are not, the person who shows up in a TV show. The same way that, people elected Ronald Reagan because they remembered Ozzie and Harriet and not because they wanted to live in reality.
Fucking reality, man. It always ruins everything.
Complexity is so hard, but I am so fascinated by the fact that, first Lavender Scare kicks off, same time as Gentleman Prefers Blondes hit theaters and keeps going until To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. And here we are again. Bunch of people can't mind their own goddamn business. Like, the same reason that, like, okay, you don't like gay marriage, you shouldn't get one. Like, yeah. I am, as an adult, I have a mortgage, I have a day job, I have friends. How do people have this much time to mind other people's business this aggressively? Like, have you considered getting a non-threatening hobby like, I don't know, Warhammer or baking?
You mentioned in your bio that you had been working to help get benefits for survivors of the Lavender Scare, and that's something that I hadn't considered. Like, there are survivors of that need help, support, resources, what have you. Can you talk a little bit more about that effort?
Oh, sure. So, the Fellow Travelers version of Lavender Scare ends in the 50s, but like the band kept chugging along until the mid 90s. And, I've mostly done this out of government, and what the approach has been is all of our partner countries, our closest allies in the world are the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. All of them have done some version of this. And because I'm a former Pentagon official, I talk to their senior defense people and their senior military people, but I also talk to their gay activists who've been successful. At the end of the Obama administration, John Kerry apologized, but there was no money. All of these other countries have apologized and done money. And, I'm in touch with a couple of congressional offices and sort of advocate for sort of a rubric built on lots of other examples of when the U.S. government has done wrong, it apologizes with money. So, the U.S. paid back victims of Japanese internment and black farmers who were discriminated against in terms of agricultural payments, and people who were survivors of the 9/11 attacks, for example. Those are all categories of the government done bad. Here's some money. So there's a pay scale for it. The issue with pursuing a lot of stuff legislatively for the last decade has been, Congress is narrowly divided, and this is a big ticket, big lift item that requires Congress to act. And with thin majorities, it's less of a priority. But I will say a thing that makes me optimistic about this and about other work that we do is in Congress, for the committees that oversee the State Department, but also for the committees that oversee the armed forces and the intelligence community and the appropriations committee, the people who decide how we spend the money, have all moved closer to me and closer to queer people on, we did a bad thing and we should do more than just say we're sorry and move on. Mm-hmm. But there are a whole bunch of people who are traumatized, right? So there's people who, got somewhere into the government pipeline and got caught for being gay and had their careers destroyed. There's people who got, had a career that got smashed partway through. Like, it is wild to me to think that contemporaneous to Ellen being on the air, you had to code switch when you went to work at USAID or the State Department or Treasury or DOJ or DOD or. And there are a whole bunch of people who suffered for no reason and deserve to be compensated for that. And it's important because, I can joke and say, yes, America should apologize with money, but given that we are in a backlash period, the more symbolic and substantial maneuvers you make to atone for the first Lavender Scare, it makes the second one, the third one, the fourth one harder to do because there is precedent. And, it makes this more grotesque and embarrassing than it already is. But, someone like, obviously Jonathan Bailey's character dies in the end of Fellow Travelers, so I guess spoilers, but there's plenty of other people who went through hell for no reason. And or people who had a brief career in federal government and left rather than lie to the federal government about their boyfriend or their girlfriend or being transgender. And like, what a stupid waste of time and money to have done that to people and to not apologize for them.
Okay, another pivot. You've mentioned NATO a few times. Greenland.
Yeah.
Greenland. What the fuck? Can you just why Why does dickbag fuckface asshole want Greenland so bad? Is there a legitimate national security concern there that like maybe makes sense? And like what? How do you think of that whole thing?
I mean, I try to keep my sort of, imagine your Donald Trump thoughts to a minimum, because like that's an ugly space I don't want to hang out in. But sure. It looks real like you've seen like the Mercator map, right? It looks really big. Mm-hmm. It looks really big, so we should have it. That's a reason, sure. But also there was like reporting recently that like one of his really wealthy buddies is obsessed with it in some way. And that might be the case. So someone just told him we should get it because this person wants it, which, what a great reason to cause geopolitical strife. But what I would say is like, over 40 people serving in the Danish military died in Afghanistan, and it's fucked up and embarrassing to go do this. And, putting my political science hat on for a minute, yes, NATO is a pain in the ass, and navigating, a group of 20 odd nations, making them all behave and be friends is tough. But breaking up the thing is stupid because it keeps things cheap. My God. All of the alternatives were worse. We tried it in the 30s. It did not go well. But yeah, it's one of the things where I just assume it's lack of impulse control and a presumption that, there's real estate, I should acquire it. And the only way to like live in the world is to acquire more real estate to dominate and control more. To bully the people you can bully, and to, side with the people who perform intimidating masculinity. Like you can see this in his fandom for Vladimir Putin of all people, and his shirtless calendars.
Yeah. Oh, Vladimir. On that horse.
On the horse. Yeah, shirtless on the horse. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any like queer angle to the whole Greenland thing anyway. There are probably no gay people in Greenland. I don't know.
I have no idea. I have not called up to ask. But if you want, the one of the more recent U.S. ambassadors to Denmark's a gay guy, Rufus Gifford. Have you watched his reality show?
No, he has a reality show?
Yeah, so when he was ambassador to Denmark, because he was the first gay ambassador. He was one of the first 6 out gay ambassadors in American history. And the Danes happened to take a shining to him. And so, like, I think it's now on Netflix, but, it's just a show you can watch of him just going around being an ambassador. And Rufus is lovely. His Instagram is like watching an all-gay male version of a Nancy Meyers film.
I love it.
And it's a great TV show to watch, because it just reminds you that you can make assumptions about people's bigoted views, but in fact, the human touch goes a long way in terms of change.
Yeah. Okay, you seem surprisingly optimistic and lovely and happy, and I want to know, what are you on, and can I have some? Or just explain to me, like, how do you keep hope where you're at, working with the organization that you're working with, in the context of the administration that we have in this country? What keeps you from just going into your room and closing the door and never coming outside? Like, how do you function and have hope in this world?
That's a good question. I guess I'll do sort of a preemptive my straightest, because I've spent far too long at the Pentagon. I sometimes think in military metaphors, for which I will apologize. So what keeps me functional is, I am not the only person in this organization. About a year before the election, I had a bunch of people go off and sit in a room and red team this outcome. Red team is a stupid term for plan for the worst case scenario that you don't like. And all those people worked really hard and put together, I got all of our Ring of Key lesbians and all of our clipboard gays in a room. We're like, make sure we have a plan. So, Friday after the election, I sobered up as nicely as I could, opened my emergency binder. Everyone else opened their emergency binder. And for, the next 9 months through the middle of last summer, we were basically running Queer Dunkirk, that movie with Tom Hardy, you might remember, where all the twinks are in danger. Yeah, we did that, but for the federal government, on the assumption that it's mostly not going to be okay. There are going to be terrible losses, but the highest priority is to get as many queer people out of danger as fast as possible. And people I'd worked closely with for years, people I'd never met, all signed up to pull the rope. And to extend the military metaphor, this is not a military podcast, we lost all the trucks and all the cool shit, but we got all the people who are really smart and can actually make the government run. And because I am stubborn to the point of mulishness, for those of you who remember World War II in movies, starts with Dunkirk, ends with Band of Brothers / Saving Private Ryan. I am planning for D-Day, and I will get there. We have had more volunteers than we've ever had. We have shifted from being an all-volunteer org to probably sometime this year we'll have more than $1 million. And even when, I could describe this as a sliding backwards into authoritarianism, we have lots of different partners and allies who share values internal to the U.S. and external from the U.S. who are helping. So ONS has a civil society coalition of 60 some odd groups. And, I learned a lot from ACT UP. These, it's small d democratic. Not everyone agrees on everything, but everyone agrees that queer people deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. And when they can work together on something, they will. So we put together this toolkit for state and local government for all the trans people getting kicked out. So we're losing about 4,000 trans service members. And, we're losing people from like clarinet and tuba players in the Navy band to some of the top people for military cybersecurity to like points in between. Like there's just a bunch of people in the military, like, plumbers assistants and welders and things. And all of those people are going to get helped finding homes and jobs and healthcare. And this sort of broad mishmash coalition that includes, everything from religious organizations to, veterans organizations I would not think of as very gay friendly is great for things like litigation. So like we have been a connector to lots of different people who need to talk to lots of different kinds of lawyers. I can't stop all the bad things, but I can make every bad thing more expensive and I can slow them down. So that's the smile, right? I do my most every day to help queer people in the federal government and beyond who are being threatened. And that is incredibly meaningful work. And I'm joined in that by others. And, does it suck to be in the part of the Marvel movie where hope is lost and Thanos has killed some people and you're going to have to build a time travel machine? Yeah, it does. On the other hand, country is a group project and fuck these people if I'm quitting first. It's just going back to the question of the first and second Lavender Scare, Frank Kameny lived long enough to see the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Not everyone lives to the end of the story, but you can make sure that you're not the only person who's going to try to bend history that way. And that's why we get to me being all smiley and hopeful, because, some days it's getting a trans person in touch with someone who can get them a job, get them transitional housing. Some days it is, we have social events, like we go to the Botanical Gardens in DC, or we take all the queer people in DC who want to hang out with therapy dogs to therapy dogs. There's incremental stuff like that. And then there's turning around to pick up the phone and talk to congressional staffers, talk to the press, talk to you guys to continue to communicate that there are decent folks out there who are stubborn and trying hard to make things better.
So if somebody out there is listening who's LGBT and they work for the federal government or the military or the intelligence community, what do you want them to know? Like what can they do safely from where they're at right now?
I mean, first thing first, they can email us, right? info@outnationalsecurity.org. We have gotten more requests for help and more questions in the last year than any time before, and we've gotten pretty clear guidance we can share in terms of, how can you organize in your workplace? How can you self-advocate under the circumstances? What is speech? At the start of the administration, the federal government shut down all of the federal employee resource groups. That is, all the places where you can feel safe as a queer person in the federal government. And we cannot entirely replace that, but we are the Splenda substitute. And we've had a bunch of queer people volunteer to, keep those communities in place and keep those communities running, even when people feel isolated and threatened and under immense stress, as they should, because these are people who happen to be really good at like aeronautics, or they're a specialist in water rescue for the Coast Guard or whatever, and the federal government should keep them, and the federal government is banging a drum saying, we don't want you, you don't belong, get out. It is asking people who are in the government right now to stay if they can and find ways for them to leave if they can't, but also to encourage them to understand that this is temporary bad weather and the government belongs to them as much as it belongs to anyone else.
Something that gets reported about you pretty regularly is that you read a shitload of shit, but that you don't read biographies. What are you reading right now?
I mean, I do sporadically read biographies. I try not to be sort of like boomer dad, right? What I am reading right now, I usually have like too many books going. So what I'm reading right now, I'm listening to an audiobook called A Tip for the Hangman, which is about Christopher Marlowe, who's a Elizabethan playwright, famous gay man who was also a very important spy. And so it fills in his adventures, coming out in college, kissing boys, and committing espionage. And I just started the new James Baldwin biography, which I got for Christmas. So that's what I'm reading right now. But I try not to read politicians' biographies. I try not to read sort of standard Washington books because that is boring. And also, I could read that for work. Yeah. And if I'm not getting paid to read someone's biography, I'm not going to, I'm not going to read, I'm running for president, buy my book.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Do we do it?
We did stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Certainly did things, folks.
So should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest, but first, Luke Schleusener. Nailed it again. I love myself. Luke Schleusener, where can people find out more about you, what you're working on, what ONS does? Just anything you want. Tell us all the things.
Sure. So we have a website, outinationalsecurity.org. And if you go there, you can sign up for a newsletter that comes out once a month that tells you all the things we're working on and all the things we're doing. For folks in DC and New York, we actually have in-person activities, but we also have a fair amount of virtual programming. We are also up on Instagram and Blue Sky and, God help us, LinkedIn. And all of those are out in NatSec one way or another. You can also just pop in the search bar and you'll be able to find us. So that is how people can get out and get in touch. And they can also email me at luke@nationalsecurity.org and info@outinationalsecurity.org. Those are your email options. And we'd love to hear from folks in the Gayish listener universe.
Yeah, awesome. Sweet. And there's be stuff in the show notes as well for this, I'm sure, or on our...
Sure,
or
that can be.
On Instagram, right? Yeah, on the Insta thing.
Okay.
Whatever. I'll just give Kyle and Derek work while we're sitting here. Our website is...
It's always assigned to other people hard work.
Our website is gayishpodcast.com.
We are on social media at Gayish Podcast.
Our hotline, you can send us text messages or leave us voicemails, is 5855-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rates apply.
Our email is gayishpodcast@gmail.com.
And our physical mailing address is Post Office Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109. If you are listening to this on Patreon on Wednesday, the happy hour is tonight at 6 p.m. Look in the Patreon app or on the website to get your Zoom link. Again, 6 p.m. Pacific tonight.
February 4th.
February the 4th. Pants optional.
Yep.
Gayest and Straightest?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Do you want to go first or second?
Sure, I'll go. Okay. My straightest is I bought a new iPhone, and it was not a new iPhone. It was a refurbished older model. And I think gays are known for being like trendy and having like the latest gadgets and stuff. Yeah. And I just don't care enough to buy the latest, trendiest, coolest, hippest stuff.
Yeah, the cool kids would make fun of you.
Yeah. But my gayest is I bought a cute iPhone case for it.
Where is it?
It's in my pocket, like a good podcaster.
Yeah. Great. Nice.
Yeah.
Plum colored.
Yeah, just like me. I don't know. What about you, Mike?
What about me? So the straightest thing about me this week is just buying jeans off Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
I just give me some of those. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I don't care about brand. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily even care about fit. It's bad.
You don't care about fit?
I mean, I do, but...
Okay, they got to fit.
Yeah, but whatever.
Okay.
And then the gayest thing about me this week, one of the reasons that my phone is on the table, I forget if I've said anything on the main episodes so far, but I got fitted for hearing aids, and I received them last week, and they talk to my phone. So if I want to like turn up the volume or change what I am hearing, that's like, it's all on this app on my phone. Quick PSA. My kind of hearing loss makes people very susceptible to cognitive decline. And so I'm trying to get in front of that. So if you're like, having a hard time understanding people in a restaurant sometimes, go get that checked, because like we want you around and your brain working for a long, long time. Now, because my hearing aids talk to my phone, the gayest thing about me this week was having my boyfriend come downstairs and me like trying to figure out how to have my hearing aids stop putting gay porn in my ears. I was listening to like dudes fucking.
They work as headphones as well?
They work as headphones. Like I could stream stuff to my hearing aids. And like, so I like, if I look like I'm out of it, it's either I'm unmedicated or I'm actively listening to gay porn while trying to figure out how to turn it off or ignore it. Yeah. That's my story.
Luke, what about you? What are your gayest and straightest?
What about you?
Well, my straightest this week is, between the snowstorm and now the bomb cyclone, I am stuck inside. And so I'm doing many of the things I don't want to do, but should do for my house. And I've gone around and I'm replacing all the electrical outlet panels with those multi-charger ones. So, I can charge the most recent iPhone and an iPad and my Kindle, which I take with me everywhere and use far too much.
Yeah.
And I've never felt more butch than, taking out that old screwdriver and seeing if I will shock myself when playing with the electricity. Really reminds me that this was not a thing I ever wanted to do when I was playing house in kindergarten.
Right. Home improvement counts. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For Gayest, I have a new condo, which I like a lot, and I got myself a print of a piece of art called Old Glory Hole, a.k.a. Ends of Empire, by one of my favorite artists, Oscar Yee Howe. And if you live in New York, you can go see it at the Brooklyn Art Museum, but it's a Chinese-American cowboy in a wife beater leaning up against a wall that is a restylized American flag. And it's just a real cool image that I'm very excited to get framed and hung up in my TV room.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, Luke Schleusener, fuck, I fucked
You
it
got
up.
it so
Schleusener.
many times.
Luke Schleusener, thank you
Close
so
enough for
much.
hand grenades and horseshoes. Thank you, guys. As someone who's been listening for the last, I think 5 or 6 years, I've shared episodes with friends that sparked conversations. It's good to be on here and good to share sort of something that I think is meaningful for me and hopefully some of your listeners will find useful. And depending on when my agent gives me the green light for the book, we can come back and talk about that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, and we know from our trip to Washington, D.C., which was on our last tour, that we have a lot of folks in the federal government who listen and support us. And it's really heartwarming and lovely. So thank you.
And I want to thank our super gap bridgers. Thank you to Matt H., Jesse, Adam Y., Locomotive, Simon Strachey, Kaylee Adams, Kid Oliver, Kobe Gordon, Squoggle, Andrew Bugby, William Bryant, John Crowley, Stephen Porcio, Stossel, Jonathan Montanius, Forrest Nell, Steve Douglas, Explosive Lasagna, Michael Covington, Thomas B., Dusty Sands, A. Coleman, Chris Cacciatorians, and Jerome York. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your money. That's it. This has been Gayish from the Chris Cacciatorian Studios. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you. See ya.
See you next week.
First, Lavender Scare is trying to make queer people disappear quietly, saying that we couldn't be trusted and we couldn't be known. The second one is all about making us disappear loudly, shoving us back into closets and, trying to encourage people to commit suicide. In both cases, it's, saying that queerness is incompatible with citizenship and with being an American. And, it's deeply unsettling. And then in this moment, the thing that gives me hope is that plenty of non-queer people find this as repulsive as queer people do. We are going to push on those boundaries and we're going to make sure that queer people stay.